What makes a truck more than just a machine? Is it the horsepower under the hood, the design of the body, or something much deeper? The stories, the memories, and the identity it gives to its driver? If you've ever loved a vehicle, you know the answer is not just about steel and rubber. It's about emotion. It's about pride. And that's exactly why the return of the Toyota Stout in 2026 is sending waves of excitement through every corner of the truck world. Now, before we dive into all the reasons why the Stout is every truck enthusiast's dream, here's a reward for sticking with me until the end of this video. You'll not only understand what makes this truck so special, you'll also discover why, on a psychological level, it connects with people in ways that very few vehicles can. And if you love trucks, that insight will change how you look at every model on the road. Let's start with the story. The Toyota Stout isn't a new name. Back in the 1960s, it was Toyota's first real attempt to break into the truck market outside of Japan. It was compact, rugged, and simple, qualities that spoke directly to people who wanted a machine that could work hard without ever complaining. For many, the Stout wasn't just a tool, it was a companion. Farmers, builders, and adventurers drove it into the ground, and it kept coming back for more. That history left an imprint, especially in the minds of older truck lovers who still remember when the Stout was part of the landscape. Here's where psychology comes into play. Humans are naturally drawn to nostalgia. Research in consumer psychology shows that when a brand revives a classic product, it doesn't just sell a machine, it sells a memory, a connection to the past. Car enthusiasts, in particular, are deeply influenced by this because cars are emotional objects. They carry stories of first jobs, first road trips, and sometimes even family traditions. When Toyota announced the return of the Stout, it wasn't just an announcement, it was a trigger. It pulled people back to a time when trucks were simpler, when driving felt raw, and when a vehicle was judged not by screens or software, but by how it performed in the dirt. But here's the key point. The 2026 Stout is not just about looking backward. Enthusiasts aren't excited simply because Toyota brought back an old nameplate. They're excited because this revival feels authentic. The brand could have chosen any name for its new compact truck, but it picked the Stout. And that decision signals something powerful. Toyota knows this isn't just a truck, it's a cultural artifact. Psychology tells us that humans respond strongly when brands respect tradition, because it makes the new product feel like an evolution, not a gimmick. That's why truck communities online are buzzing, not just about specs, but about what the name itself represents. Think about it. In the truck world, names carry weight. Tacoma, Hilux, Land Cruiser, these names are practically badges of honor. The Stout joining that lineup feels like the return of an old warrior, one that people thought was lost forever. And for enthusiasts, that makes it more than just a product launch. It feels like a piece of history has been restored. Now let's layer in another psychological truth. Enthusiasts crave belonging. Owning a certain truck isn't just about utility, it's about identity. It signals to others what you stand for. Some people drive luxury cars to show status. Some choose muscle cars to express power. Truck lovers? They're showing resilience, independence, and strength. When the 2026 Toyota Stout was announced, enthusiasts didn't just see a new vehicle, they saw an opportunity to align themselves with a legacy. They saw a chance to be part of a story that stretches back decades. That sense of belonging is one of the strongest motivators in human behavior, and Toyota has tapped directly into it. What makes this even more powerful is the timing. In today's market, trucks are bigger, heavier, and more expensive than ever. The Ford F-150 and Ram 1500 dominate the headlines. But not everyone wants or needs a giant full-size truck. Many enthusiasts crave something that feels closer to the old-school formula, compact, efficient, yet rugged enough to handle real work. That gap in the market has created a psychological tension. People want trucks that fit their lives, not trucks they have to adapt their lives around. When the Stout reemerges in 2026, it will feel like a solution to that frustration, and that alone makes it deeply appealing to the enthusiast's mind. But here's where the dream factor really kicks in. Trucks like the Stout don't just meet practical needs, they fuel imagination. Psychologists call this transportive daydreaming. When enthusiasts hear about the return of the Stout, they don't just think about driving to work. They picture themselves heading into the mountains, towing their gear, or just standing next to their truck at a meet, knowing they're part of a community that understands what that name means. In other words, the Stout doesn't just promise utility, it promises stories waiting to be written. And that is why the introduction of this truck is so much more than a headline. It's a psychological event. It blends nostalgia, identity, and aspiration into one machine. It gives enthusiasts the chance to feel something they can't get from just another new model. It taps into the deepest layers of car culture, the layers that make people spend hours debating specs online, customizing their rides, and bonding over stories of trucks that never let them down. So as we continue, remember this: the 2026 Toyota Stout isn't just another vehicle release. It's the return of a legend. It's a trigger for memory, a symbol of belonging, and a spark for adventure. And by the end of this video, you'll see exactly why it's every truck enthusiast's dream. What makes a truck unforgettable? Is it the roar of the engine, the toughness of its frame, or the way it carries not just loads, but memories? For truck lovers, the answer is always deeper than horsepower and torque. A true truck becomes part of your identity. It represents resilience, strength, and independence. That's why the announcement of the 2026 Toyota Stout has sparked such a reaction. It's not just about a new model, it's about the return of a legend that once defined what a compact, hardworking truck could be. Before we dive deeper, here's something for you. Stick with me until the very end of this video, and I'll give you more than just facts and figures. You'll understand the psychology of why this truck matters, why it reaches into the heart of every enthusiast and reignites a passion that's bigger than metal wheels or badges. By the end, you won't just know the 2026 Toyota Stout, you'll know why it feels like every truck lover's dream come true. Let's rewind. The Toyota Stout first appeared in the 1960s. It was compact, rugged, and simple, designed not for luxury but for hard work and reliability. Farmers drove it across dusty fields. Builders loaded it with tools and lumber. Families used it as a dependable partner for everyday life. What made the Stout special was not flashy design or cutting-edge tech. It was trust. People trusted it to work, trusted it to last, and trusted it to get them where they needed to go, no matter the terrain. Over time, this trust created loyalty, and loyalty created legacy. That's why the name still resonates, even after decades in the shadows. Now here's where human psychology plays a role. Studies show that nostalgia is one of the most powerful emotions in consumer behavior. When we see something from the past brought back in a new form, our brains link it to personal memories and cultural identity. For car enthusiasts, this effect is amplified. Vehicles aren't just objects, they are experiences. They remind us of who we were when we first learned to drive, who we were when we took that first road trip, or who we were when we stood proud next to our first truck. When Toyota decided to revive the Stout, they weren't just offering a new vehicle, they were offering a key to unlock those old emotions. But here's the clever part. The excitement around the Stout isn't only about looking back. It's about the meaning of its comeback in today's truck market. Think about it. Trucks today are massive. They're powerful, yes, but also oversized, expensive, and loaded with features many drivers don't need. Enthusiasts often say, "I wish trucks were like they used to be, straightforward, capable, and the right size for real life." Toyota has listened. By bringing back the Stout, they've tapped into a deep psychological desire for balance, something that respects tradition but fits modern lifestyles. Truck culture is built on identity. Driving a truck tells the world who you are. Some drive them as workhorses, some as status symbols, and others as an expression of freedom. The return of the Stout gives enthusiasts something unique. It combines rugged authenticity with Toyota's legendary reputation for reliability. That combination is rare, and psychologically, rarity increases perceived value. People don't just want what's useful, they want what feels special. The Stout, by reviving its historic name, positions itself as more than just another mid-sized truck. It becomes a badge of belonging, a way for drivers to say, "I get it, I understand the culture, I'm part of the story." There's also something powerful about timing. In an age when trucks are turning into luxury vehicles, the Stout symbolizes a return to roots. Psychologists call this the simplicity effect. When life feels complicated, people crave products that promise straightforward solutions. For truck enthusiasts, that means a vehicle that doesn't overwhelm with complexity, but still delivers capability. The Stout's comeback speaks directly to that need. It whispers, "I'm not here to complicate your life, I'm here to make it easier, just like I did decades ago." And let's not forget the power of imagination. When enthusiasts hear about the Stout, they don't picture it parked in a driveway. They imagine it hauling gear to a fishing trip, pulling onto a dirt trail with confidence, or simply standing tough at a meet where others recognize its history. Psychologists call this anticipatory pride, the sense of accomplishment we feel when we imagine owning something that reflects who we are. For truck lovers, the 2026 Stout isn't just a tool, it's a dream waiting to be realized. It fuels daydreams of adventure, work, and pride of ownership. This is why the Stout's revival feels like an event, not just a launch. It blends nostalgia, identity, simplicity, and aspiration into one package. Truck enthusiasts aren't just reacting to specs. They're reacting to what the Stout represents. It represents an era when trucks were honest, a culture where reliability was celebrated, and a promise that those values still matter today. So as we move forward in this video, remember this: the Stout isn't backed by accident. It's backed because Toyota understands psychology as much as engineering. They know that for truck enthusiasts, passion isn't measured in horsepower alone. It's measured in connection and heritage, and in the pride of being part of something greater. And by the end of this journey, you'll see why the 2026 Stout isn't just another release. It's a dream fulfilled, waiting for those who understand what trucks truly mean. What makes a truck unforgettable? Is it the raw power under the hood, the way it handles tough terrain, or the stories it helps create over years of loyalty? For true enthusiasts, the answer goes far beyond steel, horsepower, and tires. A truck becomes a symbol. It represents freedom, reliability, and identity. And when a name that once carried all those values makes a return, it doesn't just excite, it stirs emotions buried deep in car culture. That's why the return of the Toyota Stout in 2026 is not just news. It's an event that every truck lover is talking about. Before we begin, here's my offer to you. Stay with me until the end of this video, and you won't just learn the specs or history of the Stout. You'll understand the psychology behind why this truck captures hearts and minds. You'll see why it is already being called every truck enthusiast's dream. That insight, I promise, will change the way you look at not just this model, but every vehicle that claims to be legendary. Let's rewind to the roots. The Toyota Stout first appeared in the early 1960s, and it quickly became known for being compact, rugged, and endlessly dependable. It wasn't designed to impress with luxury, it was built to work. Farmers drove it across fields, contractors loaded it with heavy tools, and families trusted it to handle daily life without complaint. What made it special was not flash or extravagance. It was simplicity, reliability, and toughness. People who owned a Stout didn't just see it as a truck, they saw it as a partner. That bond is what created the legend in the first place. Here's where psychology plays a role. Nostalgia is one of the strongest emotions that influences human decisions. Studies in consumer behavior show that when a familiar name or product from the past comes back, people don't just see it with their eyes, they feel it with their memories. For car lovers, this is even more powerful because vehicles are deeply tied to personal experiences. A truck isn't just transportation, it is linked to first jobs, first adventures, and even family legacies. When Toyota announced the Stout's return, it wasn't just a marketing move. It was a trigger that brought back decades of emotion, reminding enthusiasts of a time when trucks were pure, honest, and built to last. But excitement around the Stout isn't only about looking back. Enthusiasts are smart. They don't just want a recycled name, they want a product that honors its legacy while making sense today. And that's exactly why the 2026 Stout feels different. Toyota could have named this truck anything. They chose Stout deliberately, and that choice sends a clear psychological signal. This isn't just another release, it's a continuation of a story. People are naturally drawn to continuity. It makes a product feel authentic, and authenticity is currency in car culture. Think about the weight of names in the truck world. Tacoma, Hilux, Land Cruiser, each of these carries an identity that owners proudly embrace. The Stout now joins this lineup, not as a stranger, but as a returning warrior. For enthusiasts, that matters. Because owning a truck isn't just about what it does, it's about what it says about you. Psychologists call this identity signaling. Driving a Stout doesn't just mean you own a Toyota, it means you belong to a tradition, one that values toughness and reliability over trends. That feeling of belonging is a powerful motivator for truck lovers, and Toyota knows it. Timing also makes this revival so powerful. Today's trucks are bigger, heavier, and more expensive than ever. They're loaded with tech and luxury features that often move them away from their original purpose. And while that appeals to some, many enthusiasts crave a return to something simpler, something that feels like the trucks they grew up admiring. Psychology tells us that when choices overwhelm people, they crave simplicity. The Stout reappearing now feels like the answer to that desire. It's a reminder that not every truck needs to be oversized to be capable. It taps into that deep human need for balance, practicality mixed with authenticity. Another layer is imagination. When enthusiasts hear the word stout, they don't just think about driving to the store. They imagine it hauling gear to a fishing trip, climbing a mountain trail, or standing tall at a meet where people recognize its name. Psychologists call this anticipatory pride, the satisfaction we feel when we imagine ourselves with something that reflects who we are. The Stout revives not just a truck, but a set of daydreams. It fuels the fantasy of owning something that's both practical and legendary. And this is where it becomes clear. The Stout is more than a product. It's a psychological event. It blends nostalgia with identity, simplicity with aspiration, and rarity with belonging. That's why forums, communities, and truck lovers around the world are buzzing, not just about horsepower or towing capacity, but about what this name means. The truth is, Toyota isn't just selling a vehicle here, they're selling a feeling, a sense of trust, of tradition, and of pride. They know truck enthusiasts don't fall in love with trucks because of features alone. They fall in love because the vehicle reflects who they are and who they want to be. And that's why the Stout's return is shaking the enthusiast world to its core. So as we move further into this video, keep one thing in mind. The 2026 Toyota Stout is not just another mid-size truck. It is the return of a legend. A story brought back to life. And by the time we reach the end, you'll see exactly why this truck isn't just a machine. It's a dream fulfilled for every true truck lover. What makes a truck stay in your memory long after it's gone? Is it the sound of the engine, the way it handled rough roads, or the bond you built with it over years of use? For real enthusiasts, the answer is much deeper. A truck becomes a part of your identity. It represents strength, resilience, and independence. And when a name from the past returns, it doesn't just remind you of a vehicle, it revives the feelings, the pride, and the culture that surrounded it. That is exactly why the 2026 Toyota Stout is making waves. It's not just a new release, it's the return of a legend. Now, here's something for you. If you stick with me until the end of this video, I promise you'll walk away with more than just facts about the Stout. You'll understand why this truck touches enthusiasts on a psychological level, why it feels different from everything else on the market, and why its comeback is being called a dream fulfilled. That's your reward for staying, not just information, but insight that explains the passion behind the Stout. To truly understand why the 2026 Toyota Stout is such a big deal, we have to go back. The Stout first appeared in the 1960s, at a time when Toyota was still proving itself outside of Japan. This was Toyota's first real attempt to break into the global truck market. And while it wasn't huge or flashy, it had something that mattered more: dependability. Farmers trusted it in the fields. Small business owners relied on it for hauling. Families used it for everyday life. The Stout was never about showing off. It was about doing the job, day in and day out, without quitting. Over time, that reliability became its reputation. And in car culture, reputation becomes legacy. Here's the fascinating part. Psychologists have studied why nostalgia is so powerful. And the answer is simple: it connects the present to the past. When a familiar name comes back, it doesn't just spark recognition, it triggers memories and emotions. For car lovers, this connection is even stronger. Cars and trucks aren't just tools, they're part of our personal stories. They remind us of the first time we learned to drive, the first road trip we took, or the pride of owning something that reflected who we were. When Toyota announced the return of the Stout, enthusiasts didn't just see a truck. They felt a wave of those emotions, all tied to an era when vehicles were simpler and life seemed a little more straightforward. But here's what makes the Stout's return especially interesting. It's not just about looking backward. Truck enthusiasts aren't satisfied with a recycled name slapped onto a generic model. They want authenticity. They want proof that a revival respects the original while still making sense for today's world. And that's what Toyota is signaling by choosing the Stout name. They didn't invent something new. They brought back something proven. In psychology, this creates a sense of continuity, an unbroken thread between past and present. That makes the Stout feel authentic, and authenticity is one of the highest forms of value in car culture. Think about how names carry weight in the truck world. Tacoma, Hilux, Land Cruiser. These names are almost like titles of honor. They're more than models, they're identities. Now the